Yeah.
Actually,
You kidnapped me. Sorry, I would have talked to
don't
that.
want this here.
That's right. A lot of the Libertarian Party. Well, there's beginning. That's kind of the point.
There's dozens of us.
The floor, not on the table.
Try to get hold of it. Because we get
What good is this from the podium if it's on the table?
I was going to say, pointing to the flag. I wasn't sure where it was going to be.
All right.
I think we found it now.
He's getting it.
I have, it's technically live now. Live now. Exactly, I would say avoid any controversial statements.
Okay, now, just so everyone's aware,
I can do it. Hey, y'all, I just want to let you know that I have started the live stream. So any controversial statements you might like to make, I wouldn't do it here.
or for $50, you can get in line and we will give you 30 seconds at the podium for a national audience. $50 donation. This is a state function, so it is a state contribution. There is no federal activity here other than the candidate speaking to us. Tonight is a federal event. There is no state activity.
For that 30 seconds, I say whatever I want.
That's $100. All right. I am not calling this to order, but can I have your attention for a minute? If you are not, well, that's for tonight. That says convention. That says, if you are not a credentialed delegate and you do not have credentials, you must sit at the back of the room so that the convention president does not get confused between someone asking to speak who is not a delegate and not allowed to speak in the convention. So we have plenty of space in the back. If you're not a credentialed delegate, if you're a guest, and if you are a guest, you must check in.
I'm going to check in now.
Good for you.
All right.
I'm about to lose your name badge, I think.
Thank you.
Okay. Who keeps putting that on the table?
Putting what on the table?
This.
I think
That's the second time I put it on the floor.
no, but I really forgot to put it on the table now.
You might be a libertarian.
Maybe.
All right. I'm trying to do is make well, no, this one's for them, this one's for,
You
or
go
should
right
we
by my
stick it
house.
over here? What
Exit
would
123
you
on it.
think would work better?
I'm literally like 2.5 miles up here. Yeah.
Hey, where's my AV? Mr. Biggs,
Oh, I got you. Hold on.
can you please get
I'm not staying.
second TV? Actually, we don't need that. Can we get it here pointed that way?
Okay.
One of the things.
Yeah.
And do we, yes, this is for the candidates who get 4 minutes to speak. Okay. So if we can get this and get it on the other HDMI. Stay it on the floor.
Stickers are already out of date.
I think that's
We're at 23 now.
I think that's Dan Fishman. Hmm?
Since we're live now and streaming, how do we share that?
That's an excellent question, and I think he can answer it when he comes back in.
Is this TV on and are we seeing anything?
Yeah, I got the last.
If we go away the mean, I saw an angle so they can see it. Power button is underneath on the right. Big button. We can press it once and come up.
This is the first convention like this, so like 5 years ago.
Oh, this guy's on HDMI too. Can you move his plug to the side? And the one that's on HDMI. I don't know why it's on HDMI. The guy was on HDMI.
Yeah, nobody's sitting here.
Yes, this one's,
Okay, well, the cool kids are until after.
actually, he wants it over here. He wants it over here.
Alright, that was so awesome. Alex, Tim's here. He's our.
Scoot you down. Yeah. I don't want to sit next to you.
Man, if you had come out to Matt's last night, I had a little bit of scruff action still. Oh, yeah.
And then you destroyed it.
Oh, this morning, it was great, glorious.
Same.
I haven't had a clean shave in a decade.
I've been looking for straight razor. At first it was just like stick to you guys. But it's actually become a very nice, like, zen routine. Like, doing a whole
Now he's a hipster.
oil.
Now he's a hipster. Next he's going to be doing like all natural shave thing with like a knife. Like all the way they used to do it.
And then he gets dressed and he gets on his giant little bicycle and
I was like, the next step is going from the shavette with the razor blades to doing the one where it's just like actual blade. You gotta use the strop.
Yep. My shoes that kind of stuff. They trim up on the neck.
Yeah.
That's the most nerve-wracking thing in the world. It's like I always think of that's what I was running in my neck. What am I doing? Other than bleed. Because that's all I'm doing.
Did you finish trying to fix that?
Oh, can it?
Suggestion of a
Swing it.
chair or maybe that
For the ambulance to come.
something similar to or settle on a chair.
I can't hear you. Use the walkie-talkie. There's a reason why you have that. You're supposed to
Just jumps on in and out.
Technically, Joe's running. I can get cut off and actually, I'm
fully charged. What'd you do? I was just doing that before the thing started. I had one set out, sitting right on the top of the backpack. The last minute, I decided to bring the backpack.
Still learning, but never seen someone learning. Okay.
Although this is your jacket.
Oh my gosh. You're about to blow it off. You're about to blow it off. I'm ready for it. It's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. 30
I started a caucus. I'm not joking. We endorse no candidates. We endorse no policy positions. We simply exist in a world that is perfect.
Everybody's saying
You guys read.
it was easier when we lived around it, but I need to know very small. Yeah. Not the entrance, but who's by the Philo. The second entrance. At that stop sign. The house. Right there in St. Thomas. Yeah, right on that. The things.
I think they've gone, in like a lot of places, they've gone from cages to more open. They're so open. A lot of places are finding out. They're hiding it.
No one realized that until the end of the process.
And you go on and walk, and they're not that much. Well, that's what it is now.
Verify the names. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, I thought we were like 9 o'clock. She went to one convention in Charleston because that's her hometown. And then she went to her brother,
And what about I've had a box that you can have every place that box.
yeah, I've done that a lot with my wife, but she's
Mr. Fishman,
Yes, sir.
she's in meetings.
I need to see your identification. You were given the wrong one.
That's our play, but I like that one day.
You were given the wrong one.
I lied and said I was.
You lied and said you were a guest?
I apologize. All right, thank you very much.
You realize that's a $50 fine.
In South Carolina, I thought that was. You know, I have
How do you think I raised money at the meetings? $5 fine, $5 fine, $10 fine. Speak out of order, take too long, you talk, hey, it raises money.
That's good. I
And it keeps the
appreciate
meetings tight.
it. Yeah, for sure it does. They're all going to have a good, great turnout. I'm excited to be here.
So we may lose our title. I'd like to say we're part of being an organized group. Looking pretty good.
I like the Groucho Marx lines.
Be a member of any organization that would have it.
I appreciate somebody of my own age who is familiar with that quote.
So we don't have that votes to give them time to credentials.
Mr. Fishman.
Hey, what's up, brother? Good to see you. How you been?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, how about you?
Let me give you one of these. You can hand them out to people all you want. In case you happen to go to the casino later on.
Oh, I thought they were like cheat sheets.
They are. They're cheat sheets with a libertarian statement on gambling on the back.
Ah, okay. I might have to force myself to get over there.
Feel free. How long are you in town for?
Tomorrow morning.
Me too. Looking forward to the debate tonight.
Yeah,
Should be a good thing.
should be awesome.
How long are you in country for? Flying back to Mexico tonight or tomorrow? Or?
Tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow morning we drive back to Charleston and then I fly out from there.
That's good.
And then I come back next weekend for Olean.
Right. I drove down from DC, which wasn't terrible.
That's got to be
6.5 hours, 6 hours. And the thing about it is that, Darlington Speedway is right around the corner. And my midlife crisis was a sports car. So the whole way, I'm like, oh, I'm going to Darlington. I'm going. The other thing about it is that my southern accent really comes out when I'm in DC. I can't help it. But, yeah, I'm psyched. This is always a great convention. Got a friends. Hopefully, my friend Steve French, who ran for governor here, is supposed to show up at the debate. He's awesome. He debated Nikki Haley in 2014. And so I would love to see these guys here. I guess Kokesh is here already.
I saw his bus outside.
Yeah.
Check in. There goes Phillips. But yeah.
Good enough. I'll be interested to hear what we should have. So Phillips is going to be here. Joe Bishop Henchman's going to be here. Susan Bogart's going to be here. So pretty good LNC turnout.
So Kim, did she qualify?
Yes, she did. So she should be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never know. Whenever I see John show up, I'm like, oh, it's
well, it's interesting. So you know, you're number one for the year in terms of fundraising.
Oh, awesome.
I know this because I've been getting a lot of questions. This week I did New York Times, Washington Post, and the LA Times, all of whom asked who are our official candidates. And we'll be putting up a page relatively soon now that we have those. In my opinion, some of those criteria are a little ridiculous, but you met them all. But I've been pointing people to the FTC page, which you're number one on now, so I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, that was, I saw the thing about the, we have to have Libertarian, and I was like, okay, so we redesigned our flyers and we were getting ready to order a bunch of new ones anyway, so. Here's
the thing that I would say, my personal opinion about it. Have a thing that has that. Don't feel like you have to have that on everything.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because that's
Republicans and Democrats don't do that.
Right. And it scares people away. Like I've had more success with people if I talk to them about policy and 100%. Tell them I'm a libertarian.
100%. So when I ran for city council, I had a pretty good campaign going, did a lot of door knocking, stuff like that, and people really responded well to my campaign. I was never going to win a city council race. City council is about, did your kids go to school with my kids and play soccer and stuff like that? My wife and I don't have any kids. But
disqualified.
Exactly. But even so, going to the primaries, 6 people running for top two in the primary. People who I'd seen it come up and they wave and say, so, you know, I was all excited about that, but then I heard you were libertarian. I'm like, that you want to close all the schools. I'm like, I mean, that's how I know that I've been successful. That, you know, one of my opponents went out there and said, oh, Fishman's libertarian. They want to close all schools and stuff like that. But it is...
Yeah, meanwhile, the Democrats, there was this article on Texas wants to pass a constitutional amendment forbidding...
2 Dans, no waiting.
Yeah.
See you, sir.
How are you, gentlemen?
It's the Dan zone.
It's the Dan zone.
Yep.
The Dan zone.
I want to caution you guys, that mic is live and live streaming.
Okay. Thank you for the caution.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say very filthy things to Dan Bartlett.
I want to say very filthy.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing about it. It has a mixed message for libertarians. A lot of people are like, could I get 30 seconds in front of the podium then if I got a live audience on the YouTube stream?
So is this live to Facebook or live to the NSA?
This is, both. Right, I mean, but it's also live to the LP YouTube stream.
Okay, awesome.
So, actually, I mean, as soon as we brought it up, there are apparently some people who watch it all the time and get alerts for it and stuff like that. So, that's good. But, I love the South Carolina delegation. You know, these guys put on a great show, stuff like that. I'm glad to show this.
Yeah.
Plus, did you guys see you got a new friend? Oh, wait, it's not here.
I just walked in the door, so no, I haven't seen anything.
Jacob's announced.
Yeah, good.
In fact, I meant to post that to Facebook too.
Awesome.
But considering how much people think I'm inappropriate in the way I do my job, I may not be the person who should post this.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's good. But, I mean, he was in Massachusetts as well.
Right.
I don't think this is that shocking.
No, he was in Iowa too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so.
Right. The non-announcement.
Yeah. The only debate was when he was going to do it, not if.
Exactly.
Really.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, you know, it'd be interesting to see where the old timers fall between him and Joe. And it's going to be interesting too. I think, I'll tell you, Michael is, you know, both a plus and a minus in that second Michael Cloud. So it's going to be interesting to see what the effect is. I'm looking forward to the debate.
Be interesting.
Yep. And I'm hoping to sneak out in the afternoon and get to the, here they say pecan, not pecan. I always say pecan. What do you say?
Technically California.
I don't say it, so.
So here.
I say pecan.
I always say pecan. I've been corrected 4 times. So pecan, but the pecan festival downtown Florence.
Pecan is what they give you at the doctor's office.
Yeah, my sister's supposed to be up this
That's
afternoon.
going live.
My sister's supposed to be here this afternoon, so that's why I will be hanging out with this afternoon.
Good enough. Well, maybe I'll go to that together. I mean, just walk the street. It's a street festival, and I mean, I want to buy a bushel of pecans. So, see, I said it right.
A bushel.
I have not.
That's what.
I have not eaten, so I'm going to go find some breakfast.
Bushel is a technical word.
Yeah, no, it is.
Right. 1 bushel is 6 pecks. I
So
think.
is that metric or imperial?
That's definitely imperial, but or maybe it's 6 pecks to a bushel. Somebody on the YouTube stream should tell us that.
All I know is I just took a trip to Oaxaca.
Yeah.
And it's this little city where they mine salt out of the
Yeah.
ocean washes up, it dries out, they mine salt out of it. And there are little places on the side of the road where you can buy them bags by the kilo in various granulations.
I see where we're going already.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, good thing we don't have to fly through customs with that.
Awesome though. It's a great way to get salt as well.
Yeah.
That's we actually we're big into sea salt recently. I'm not sure exactly why. There's dietary things that happen in my house that I don't really control. But we've been really into sea salt, so look for the Oaxaca sea salt. That would be cool.
I'll see if I can. Are you going to be in Olean?
I am not.
Okay.
No, I got because I had the LNC the weekend after that.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you at another convention. I'll try to bring some up.
Sure. That would be awesome. We would love that.
If I can get it, I'll put it in little baggies about this big.
Yep.
See what customs says.
I got one. You can save it. My name's Dan, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Tyler.
Tyler, nice to meet you. He's interested though.
Do I?
I said he's interested.
Oh, I got a ton of these too. I'm gonna go drop some of these around though.
All right. I'm gonna follow you out, so I'm gonna pass these out.
Or suspend the rules, which I don't think we can suspend because that's the state law. All right.
You have to go to the casino. Libertarian.
All right, good morning, everyone. If I can ask the delegates to take their seats, please. I remind everyone, if you are not a delegate, back of the room, because I don't see voting sticks, so the convention president will have difficulty identifying who's who, so I need at least a gap of a couple of rows between delegates and those who are guests. We have a lot of guests here today. We have a number of presidential candidates in the room who will be sitting at the back with the guests. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Stuart Flood. I'm the current chair of the party for the next 10 minutes? There's some debate about when my term ends, whether it ends at the beginning of the convention, when my successor is elected, or the end of the convention. It doesn't matter. We are going to do something because we are still waiting on about half of the delegates before I call the convention to order, because calling the convention to order requires going immediately to business under state law. I am going to do some little bit of delaying. We have Mr. Dan Fishman, who is the director of the National Party, and he asked to speak to the convention. So if you would care to come up and delay as long as possible. Not too long.
Delegates, I appreciate your indulgence in allowing me to speak here, technically out of order, and that's something the Libertarians care about.
Meeting hasn't started.
Well, yes, I appreciate that. To that end, I had a little bit that I was going to say, but as I was driving south on 95, I saw a Tulsi billboard up on the side of the road, and I thought, that's a little optimistic. However, it goes to the point that a political party needs workers. It needs the people who are out there day to day, getting the pulse of the population, doing the hard work, knocking doors, maintaining candidates, and maintaining ourselves. Because there are times when we do this, when there's a libertarian you can feel I am alone. I am the only person who understands what's going on. And when we have a convention like this and we get to be together, we should celebrate ourselves, because that's what this is. This is a group of people in a room combined for a purpose that is as noble as anything we will ever work for. Libertarians, we don't want liberty because we want to keep our money to ourselves. We don't want liberty because we're selfish. We want liberty because we understand that liberty is the thing that sets us free. I had, we all go through our libertarian libraries at various points in time. I recently reread The Fatal Conceit, Hayek's last book. If you haven't read it, it's a really wonderful one, but I can summarize it very quickly. You look at this amazing world that we have, right? We are live streaming, right? Anybody in the world can watch what's being said right now. We have this amazing highway system, right? Roads, stores. I got here this morning and realized that I had forgotten to pack a razor. And I was going to the convenience store, and there is this piece of steel that has been cut into small things, put into a piece of plastic. It's amazing. And the idea that we could have designed a society, an economy, through some sort of managed thing to make that happen, that's what Hayek refers to as the fatal conceit. The idea that we could do it better. What happens is everybody wants to figure out a way that they can be of service to society. Because society will pay you if the service that you offer is valuable. We recognize that. We recognize the fact that when we are able to be of service, it is meaningful to us. In addition to being potentially profitable, you get the reward of having served your society. We want everybody to understand that. And as libertarians here, combined together, we are dedicated to the idea that we want everybody to have the liberty to find how they can be of service to society. There is no other party that does that. There is no party that says, we want everybody to explore the limit of their potential. The old parties say, we own you. We own your vote. No matter what you do, you have to make sure that Donald Trump, or you have to make sure that Elizabeth Warren doesn't get elected. We own your vote. We are the people who advocate for real liberty. We are the people who advocate for people standing up, for people finding their way to be of service voluntarily to society. I want to thank you guys very much for your time, for being here, for us being in a room of libertarians where we don't feel so alone. Last thing I'll say, if there are people here that you don't know, that you've never seen before, please make an effort to shake their hand, make an effort to tell them, welcome to the Libertarian family. Thank you guys very much.
Wow, it's exactly 9 o'clock. That was really good. Give me 1 second. Just got to make sure we got sufficient people in the room. Well, you'll get that from all right. Okay, 2 this time. We'll do an extra one. Believe it or not, there's not a mark on it after 4 years of banging this as hard as I could. All right, I want to call the. Oh my gosh. Did we actually prove this? We're in the wrong year.
Good.
Did that happen? Okay, I will. There's one slight change to the agenda. Today is November 2nd, 2019, not 2017, and I apologize for that.
Should we make corrections on our?
You are free. Did they hand out pencils to them? No. Mr. Moss, since you're not credentialed, can you please hand out pencils so they can correct it? You need here? Yes, there's actually boxes of South Carolina Libertarian Party pencils. With erasers. With erasers. All right. Yes.
Great idea.
All right. As you can tell, I am still doing just a little bit of delay to give a few more minutes for people. I want to make one or two opening remarks while they're getting me the count of delegates. I want to say this. It has been a very long and a very short 4 years. 4 years ago, there were 15 people in the room. 4 years ago, we lost $7,000 on the convention. 4 years ago, we had 10 organized counties. I have been extremely lucky in my 2 terms as state chair to have, they use the word there's no I in team, and that is correct. I have had a team that has built this party. It has involved people from Greenville to Charleston to Beaufort to wherever, whatever the most northern county we've been in was. And we have built this party, and it's been fun. And this is my last time with the gathering. After 14 years on the state committee, term and a half as vice chair, 2 terms as state chair, 3 terms on the national committee, the last of which I represented North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, and California in the only triple region we ever had. I get to take a little bit of a break. I'm sure that by Monday, the new state chair will have appointed me to something, and I'll be back at it. But you give me at least a 5-minute break? If I get 5-minute break, okay. But
We appreciate your service.
thank you.
Here, here.
I want to say the important thing is to pass along the torch, and this torch is well lit. This party has really grown. I see people I didn't know 4 years ago. This has been great. That said, I will open nominations for the election of temporary convention president and secretary. Do I have a nomination for temporary convention president? Yes, sir.
Stuart. What?
Oh, you nominate me for temporary, okay.
Temporary president, yes.
Do we have any other nominations for temporary president?
Larry Minor? Permanent.
Yes, sir.
David Morris.
Sir, all right, I'm gonna say this. The temporary convention president serves for 1 minute. If we have a vote, it'll take 10 minutes because it will require a secret ballot. Do you wish to withdraw your nomination?
I'll withdraw.
This is what you do under state law. Now, in this part, in a Republican convention, Democratic Party convention, they take a half an hour to elect the temporary and the permanent because that's when they do all their speakers and while they're counting the votes. All right. So do we have a nomination for temporary convention secretaries? Victor and
Chuck. I nominate Chuck.
Thank you. All right. Nominations are closed. Because this is a position required by state law, NOTA cannot be on the ballot. Is there any objection to electing these as temporary officers? Hearing none, okay. I am now the temporary convention president. We will now open nominations for permanent convention president.
Don't we do?
I apologize, sir. Thank you, sir. Initial credentials report. Initial credentials report, Mr. Secretary. There's Mr. Secretary.
Previous secretary.
Thank you, sir. How did I put 2017 on there? I changed it to November 2nd. How did I do that?
So you burn out. It's because you had 9 AM, that's why you thought your brain was put it.
Right now we have 34. And we'll add those people after we.
So we have,
Yeah, 34, majority would be 17, 2/3 would be 23.
okay, majority is 18.
18.
All right, thank you. All right, that's the initial credentials report. Now the election of the permanent convention president and secretary. Do we have any nominations for permanent convention President, yes, Al.
Nominate Laird.
Nominate Laird Minor.
Second.
Do we have any other nominations for permanent convention president? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Nominations for permanent convention secretaries.
I nominate Chuck and Victor.
Thank you, sir. Any other nominations? No. All right.
I'm a communist.
Is there any objection? All right. You have the gavel, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I want it back at the end of the day.
All right, thank you, Stuart. Couple of quick little housekeeping matters. There's restrooms. There's a unisex restroom at the top of that hill there. It's only for one person, but if you go back out through the glass doors where we came in, they're ordinary men's and women's restrooms if anyone needs to use them. Coffee and juices at the front and the back of the room. We have a pretty full agenda. It fits onto one page, doesn't look like much. It will take a lot of time. So we need to move as quickly as we can through all this and keep ourselves to the time limits because we have a hard break, a hard end at 3 p.m. The gavel comes down at 3. We do not go past there. I'm sorry?
We have 4 people waiting to be on
Right. Before we move into the election of officers, I'm advised that there are a few people who want to be added as delegates. That requires a suspension of the rules, the consent of the delegation from that county, if it's an organized county, and the consent of this body. Is there anyone wanting to make a motion? Yes, sir.
I would like to.
Point of information.
Sir.
Can you tell us the counties and the people?
I don't know all the counties. Mr. Moss from Dorchester, I don't know.
Mr. Moss from Dorchester.
I don't know anybody else.
Mr. Moss from Dorchester, it's Stephen Louis Daslock from...
No, they don't require a vote. They were added. They don't require a vote.
They've been added before.
We were notified before 9.
In that case, we have 37 with just Larry waiting to be added.
Okay.
Well, Eric, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I move that we suspend the rules to consider adding delegates to the convention.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? This requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor, raise your, delegates only, raise your hand. That seems unanimous. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. We are considering the addition of delegates. Is there a motion for a particular delegate?
Mr. President, Mr. Moss has been with the party a long time. He's been to national conventions. He comes to his county meetings. We know him. I heartily recommend that we add him as a delegate. And I make that motion.
Is there a second? Second. Second? Any discussion? Sir?
What county?
Dorchester.
Any discussion, other questions? All right, this only requires a majority vote. Dorchester, there is no one here from Dorchester, no one else, right?
Right.
At least not yet. Okay, so we take the consent of the county as given. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Ayes have it. Welcome, Mr. Moss. All right, the first order of business is the election of the new chairman, followed by the vice chairman and the second vice chairman.
Mr. President, can you get us a count of what is 50%?
Can we get a new delegate count? Credentials report.
That would be 38.
It's now 38.
Be 20 for majority, 26 for 2/3.
20 for majority, 26 for 2/3. All right, first order of business is the election of a new chairman. Do we have a motion? Sir.
I nominate Sean Thornton to the office of state chairman.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I would say about 5 of them.
We need one. All right. Do you wish to address the convention, or shall we let's just move to?
Do we have other
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'm closing the nominations. I think it's by consent, but let's take a vote.
No, we actually select to go against
No,
no.
that's because we have to have notice.
Yes.
So do we have a ballot?
No, I refuse to print one. I refuse to allowing them to vote for no. Sorry. No. I can print them if you want them. Or you can do by raise of hand. I don't think anyone would dare.
Does anyone object to a raise of hand?
Secretary cast a ballot orally.
We don't have time to print it.
Okay, no problem.
Since there are no other nominations, I would take a nay vote as being for NODA. Is there, all in favor of Sean as new chairman? Raise your hand. All opposed? Congratulations. Yay. Now in power.
Thanks, everybody.
Is there a motion? The next is the first vice chairman. We have a nomination for first vice chair.
Nominate Stephen Biggs.
Stephen Biggs has been nominated. Is there a second? I see a second. Are there any other nominations for first vice chair? Seeing none, I'm going to close the nominations. Let's do it the same way. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? I see none. Mr. Biggs is hereby elected. Is there a nomination for second vice chair?
I nominate Matt Hicks.
Matt Hicks has been nominated. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second. Do we have any other nominations? I see none. Closing the nominations. We will follow the same process and fail. Sir.
Oh, sorry, I was jumping the gun.
He does early voting.
Are you sure we want to invest in that?
Hell yes.
All right. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? One opposed. Two opposed. Two for NODA. The ayes have it. Mr. Biggs is now second vice chairman. Before I move on to the next order of business, we're moving along very fast, which is a good thing.
We're now 90 minutes ahead of schedule.
It's a very good thing because there's a lot.
Because we have 90 minutes of speakers.
And the next order of business is a presentation by the Rules Committee. Before we do move into that, I just want to make a point. We have, if you'll note on the agenda, addressed by presidential candidates. That's on the agenda for after lunch, but if we're moving along fast enough that there's time before lunch, I will start it then.
I think that would be inappropriate because several candidates are not going to show up until 1.
I will still do some of them before. We may have to carry it over and do some of them afterwards. And you notice we have timers here. It will be limited in the amount of time that they're granted. I think that's the only item that we're using timers for. Is that?
Unless you'd like to use like 60 seconds for people if they're debating.
If it comes to that, we can do that. But at the moment, this is only, as far as I can tell, for presidential candidates. All right, the next item of business is the presentation from the Rules Committee. And since I'm the chairman of the Rules Committee, I'm going to be giving the report. I'm going to have to turn the gavel over to someone else as interim president, and I'm going to turn it over to Stuart to run this portion of the meeting.
All right, everyone was emailed the list of items. Actually, I don't have one in front of me, which I may need to grab. And I will say, as a member of the Rules Committee, there is no minority report from any of the members, so there's just the minority report. I'm sorry, the majority report. There are 9 items, all of which may not appear to be sane, but they're very important, especially the one that allows us to elect delegates to the National Convention, because we have a little mistake in the rules. And we are not allowed to elect delegates to the National Convention because somehow the previous Rules Committee, I think that was us, somehow missed it. And so unless we add that one, we don't go to the National Convention. And unless we add 1 or 2 more, there's some other things we don't do. So while it may sound a little bit crazy, there's some logic. If you care to speak, sir.
Yes, there's none of them that are crazy. All of them make perfect sense. You received.
I said they sound crazy.
You received the report in the delegate package, so you should all have a copy of it, or at least have had a chance to. I'm just going to go through the 9 very quickly. I'm not going to read the actual text that we proposed, although that's all here. Just going to give you a quick explanation for each one of them. And after I've done all 9, I'm just going to blow through all 9 of them. If there's questions, debate, we'll move into that at that point. The first is a change to Rule 2, Section 2F. All it says is that rule changes that we adopt today, or at any future convention for that matter, go into effect immediately upon adoption. Previously, there was some question about the rules changes not going into effect until after the convention closes, or when. So just clarifying that point. Number 2 is a 2-parter to Rule 7, Section 2. Most of these, by the way, affect Rule 7, which is the rule that controls how our convention runs. This adds 2 new sections to it. One permits us to add the section which is already provisionally on your agenda to have delegates for presidency or for LNC, to address the convention if there's time. And the second one is, as Stuart has already mentioned, adds to the agenda the election of our delegates to the National Convention. Somehow that got left off the list of items that the rules specify have to be in the agenda. Pretty straightforward. Number 3 is an amendment to Rule 7, Section 2. This is another 2-parter. It has to do with resolutions. There's nothing in our rules right now which permit people to bring resolutions before this body. And frequently a convention does have resolutions. We have one, in fact, on the agenda for later this afternoon. So we're formalizing a process. And we're formalizing it in this manner. First, if a resolution is proposed and delivered to the party secretary at least 2 weeks in advance, it will be included in the delegate packets, and it will be on the agenda, and its proponents can speak to it. And adoption of that resolution will require a simple majority vote. The second part of it is that it deals with submissions without prior notice. We want to allow people to raise the idea of making resolutions on the floor if necessary. But if it's without prior notice, the rules are stricter. It would require a 2/3 vote. And there's a lot of detail about the number of physical copies that people have to make, because we don't want to present a resolution to you guys to vote on if you haven't had a chance to read the language. If it hasn't been pre-written, thought through carefully, and presented to you to read for yourselves, that's not fair to anyone. It adds a whole lot of time. So we don't want to do that. So we don't want to do that. So number 1, it will not obviously be included in the delegate package. It's farther down on the list, so that if we run out of time, that's the first thing that's going to be cut, and requires a 2/3 vote to pass it. The resolutions that are not given advance notice. Rule change number 4 is to Rule 7, Section 3D. This one and the next one are just codifying our rules, resolutions which were already adopted by the state committee 2 months ago at the meetings, and they have to do with delegates to the National Convention. And the first one provides that proposed delegates to the National Convention have to be submitted to the secretary, to the state secretary, at least 30 days prior to the opening of this convention, of the convention. So we have a prior list of people who want to be delegates. And we will not accept delegates, nominations to be delegates to the National Convention on the floor unless they're from non-organized counties. Obviously, if it's not an organized county, the county could not have sent a list of its proposed delegates. So that's how that would be handled. And the second part, well, this is actually Rule 5, but it's a related issue, has to do with people who sign up to be delegates and are elected to be delegates to the National Convention, but who fail to show up and fail to tell anybody that they're not showing up. We had an issue with that in the last National Convention. We had a number of people who very much wanted to be delegates, got themselves elected, and then not only didn't show up, but refused to tell anybody that they weren't coming. or didn't until the very last minute. So this particular rule is in effect now because it was adopted by the state committee 2 months ago. What we're doing is codifying it into the rules. And what it says is if someone is elected a delegate to the National Convention but fails to notify the state party reasonably in advance, unless a bona fide medical emergency, and there's an exception built in that the chairman can waive this, such a person would be barred from being elected to as a delegate to national in the following National Convention. So it's a one-term bar from serving as a delegate. It was really the best form of punishment we could come up with. Rule change number 6 is a very simple one. This has to do with chairman appointing committees. There are a bunch of committees that the chairman gets to appoint. The current rule says that the committees have to be appointed each year. That was a simple oversight. It should say each term. Once the new chairman takes office, he then will be appointing the committees, rather than taking office today and then in January 1 he has to reappoint them. It was just a silly oversight to do it that way. Change number 7. This is an amendment to Rule 8, Section 1K3B. And all it does is it moves the Rule Committee from being a temporary committee, which is now is created only for the purpose of in advance of this meeting of the convention, moves it up into being a permanent committee. And there's a benefit to that. The Rules Committee tends to sort of act as a parliamentarian, if you will. It's called upon, at least the chairman is frequently called upon to opine on what the rules mean, how they're worded. There are a few other odds and ends that are sort of ongoing. It's not like it's a very active committee most of the time, but if you change it to a permanent committee, it's available for the use by the chairman. Change number 8 is to Rule 8, Section 1K, small 5. A very simple change also. It specifies that all committees report to the chairman. That was implicit before, but it was never really clear whether committees report to the chairman or to the state committee. We're making it explicit that they report to the chairman. And it makes perfect sense because the chairman not only appoints all the committee members, he has the power to remove them at will and appoint successors. So obviously it does report to the chairman in any real sense. We're just making that clear. Rule 9, the last one, sounds complicated. It's difficult. It was difficult to write, but the issue we're dealing with in Rule 9 has to do with how we count quorum at the state committee meetings and how that intersects with small counties that have very few members. And what this rule basically says, if we have a county, it's a small county, it has maybe just a chairman who is also serving as the state representative on the committee. If that person gets elected to a state office or position,
Point of information, one just was.
True. Lee County is the perfect example of that. Matt Hicks is Lee County.
Keeping the lights on.
And as the chairman, he is also the delegate to the state committee. He has now been elected an officer in the party. Well, if he's an officer in the party, he cannot serve as the delegate from his county. Well, there's no one else in Lee County to serve as delegate. Lee County is thus unrepresented in a sense. But more importantly, Lee County is still counted towards a quorum. We have to have a third of the organized counties present at the meeting to constitute a quorum. Well, if we have a county like Lee, they can't have somebody there. It makes it harder to get a quorum. So what we've decided to do is, in a situation like that, all we're doing is Lee County would not be counted toward a quorum. That's all. It's just for counting quorum purposes. That's all. It just makes it easier for us to achieve quorum. Those are the 9. Yes, that's it. Those are the 9 changes. That is the report of the Rules Committee. I'm going to turn it back over to Stuart, but if he has questions or anyone does, he can call me.
Are there any questions regarding the report? Yes, before I recognize Dr. Morris, I do want to point out that these were emailed out and posted on the website, and like the 42 pages of the rules themselves, we weren't going to kill trees since maybe 5 people might actually want to read them. Dr. Morris.
Is there any, just thinking about this, would an alternative way to handle it would be that Matt, at that meeting, would be considered the representative from Lee County?
No, sir. He is a voting member as second vice chair. He votes as second vice chair.
He couldn't temporarily relinquish that vote and just vote as representative.
Then the second vice chair would not be there, and the second vice chair is also counted as part of quorum.
Okay.
And we have had this happen for one term. I was vice chair in Charleston, so Charleston was not present. It's happened for many years to Berkeley County, it's happened to others, and there have been at least a half a dozen meetings in the 14 years I've been on the committee where we failed to have quorum because of one person. Mr. Higgs.
I move that we accept all the recommendations from the Rules Committee as presented.
Well, you actually don't move because the majority report, the motion is already on the floor. We're debating the motion.
Doesn't require a motion?
It doesn't require a motion or second.
But thank you.
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay. I'm going to do this the way you're supposed to. Is there any objection to adopting all of these? If there's any objection, we will hold a vote. And is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the rule changes are adopted. And everyone who's on a committee, your term of office just ended.
Thank you. You're relinquishing the gavel back to me. Okay, well, we are moving along at a brisk pace.
Lightning round.
I'm sorry?
Lightning round.
Lightning round, yes.
These candidates might get 10 minutes
They
to
might
speak.
get if anyone wants to hear for that long.
Point of information. One candidate is present who has a time restriction on departure. And since you are now authorized to move things in the agenda at your pleasure, I believe I saw Mr. Chairman is, yes.
What's your deadline? I can't hear you, sorry.
She said 10:30.
Well, it's 9:30 now. We've got quite a bit of time.
Might be good to do it before we get into the very contentious platform, which will be all of maybe 2 minutes.
Wildly contentious. There may be fist fights, I'm not sure.
I'm glad I came.
I will do it after the bylaws, after the platform. And we'll have time probably for all of the candidates.
Deadpool reference.
So the next item of business is the Platform Committee's report. Matt, you are the chairman of the Platform Committee, correct? Is there a minority report?
No, sir. There is no minority report.
All right, so you please present the report of the committee.
I certainly will. First things first, I'd like to apologize to people that are offended by me looking at this. I, too, did not want to kill a bunch of trees, so I just have it in digits. And I'd also like to thank Laird and the rest of the Rules Committee. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the inner workings of that machine, but it is worse than the dentist. And you guys have done the yeoman's work. I really appreciate what you're doing. So for the Platform Committee, on plank number 6, the title of it is Topical Legislation, Recall, Referendum, and Initiative, and NOTA. We are recommending that we change the title of plank 6 to Procedural Changes via Constitutional Amendment. There's also a little bit of a wording change that we've put into this plank as well, and I'll read our recommended plank to you. The SCLP believes that the South Carolina Constitution should be amended so that any bills or ordinances without regard to how it is introduced must pertain to one subject only, and that subject shall be expressed in the title. Additionally, the SCLP supports the rights of citizens to recall elected officials, the right of citizens to place binding referendums on ballots, and the inclusion of a none of the above option on all ballots for elected office. So the reason that we changed the title was for clarity purposes. I mean, the first title, while it is very precise, it's kind of clunky to read. Also, we were recognizing that we want these changes to be constitutional amendments so that the South Carolina legislature just can't undo them on a whim, make it a much more involved and difficult process. The next recommendation from the platform committee is in regards to plank number 11. We unanimously voted to change it so that it reads, the SCLP supports the repeal of the 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution, thereby restoring to the state legislatures the power of appointment of United States senators. By so doing, senators will be directly accountable to their state legislatures and remove any benefit to be had from trading favors for votes. Senators, as per the Founding Fathers' intent, must be the representatives of their respective states and not the individual voters. We further affirm our support for the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution of the United States, the rights of the citizen to perform jury nullification, and the power of local governments to nullify laws. So by changing the wording in this, basically the end result of that is that plank number 7 will be subsumed into plank number 11. And the reason for that is a recognition that states do have privileges and states do have authorities, but states, and when I say states, I'm talking capital S, not like South Carolina, but governments, they do not have rights. They have powers, they have privileges and authority to do things, but they do not have rights. And this is kind of a recognition of that. And the repeal of the 17th Amendment puts Laird is actually really, if you want to really get into the weeds on this, he's brilliant talking about the repeal of the 17th. But doing that puts the authority and the power back with the states where it belongs as far as federalism is concerned. So subject to any questions that you may have, those are the only recommendations from the platform committee. Yes, sir.
The first of your recommendations, which is initiative and referendum, whatever. The second sentence is initiative and referendum and recall. It's great. The first sentence, which talks about the one subject rule of the Constitution, that's already in the state constitution.
Yeah, but they don't do it.
Well, I bring lawsuits about it all.
Right, yeah.
But so it doesn't really require an amendment.
Yeah.
It already exists in the Constitution, and also the feature of that one subject bringing the title. That's also in, I think it's Article 1, Section 17. I'm not certain of that. I'm not opposed to it. It's surplus. We already have that.
Okay. I mean, do you want to recommend a wording change?
No, I think it's okay to have it. I'm just pointing it out that we do have that already.
Okay.
Second sentence is great.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, anything? Hearing none.
Yeah, no.
Wait, yes, sir.
In plank 11, at the end when it says power of local governments to nullify laws, is that saying any law, any state law, federal law, or whatnot, or how? What is the procedure in that?
I think yes. I think it is any law, where that comes into play, the way I see it, and this is just Matt talking now. I'm not speaking on behalf of the platform committee for this. This is just Matt's vision of that sentence. So let's just say, and I'm sure you may have seen it on the news, Sheriff so-and-so in county so-and-so somewhere says, this is a gun sanctuary county. I will not enforce any gun restriction laws in this county. He's nullifying federal law by giving a big middle finger and saying, this is what I'm going to do and you can't stop me. That's what that's about.
So would the locality, the municipality actually be able to nullify the law, or just not be in compliance with the federal agents?
That's an issue for the courts to decide and not me. I'm with you. I see
what are we saying on the plank? Which way are we going on the plank? My question.
Well,
I think
I think the plank is directed at the state legislature. So
yes.
We're talking about changing the state constitution to permit initiative, referendum, and recall of all state laws. It wouldn't apply to federal laws. As far as federal laws are concerned, things like the sheriff's not enforcing laws, or sanctuary cities in California or whatever, that comes under the anti-commandeering doctrine, not working, which says that the federal government cannot force the states to use its resources to enforce federal law, but they don't choose to do so. They can't obstruct the enforcement of the law, by federal officials, but they don't have to enforce it themselves. And that's what some of the sheriffs are doing, for instance. It's not technically nullification. It's simply non-enforcement. The courts have been quite clear that the states do not have the power to nullify federal law. We cannot not enforce it. Is that helpful?
That's perfect. Really smart at this legal stuff. Yes, sir, Mr. Morris, Dr. Morris.
It sounds like the way you're wording it that way simply to make the point that while you're not talking technically how it would work, that local government should have more power to buck the trend from up above, basically.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. We are. Let's be realistic about it. The plank that we're discussing right now will never be codified in law. Not in my lifetime, not in your lifetime. It is to make the point. This is what we believe. It's a statement of belief.
Well said.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you reread it start to finish?
Which one? The plank 11 change?
The plank how it would read when it goes. If approved,
Yes, sir. If approved, the new platform plank 11, well, I'm not sure about the numbering of the stuff we switched, but the new platform plank would read, the SCLP supports the repeal of the 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution, thereby restoring to the state legislatures the power of appointment of United States senators. By so doing, senators will be directly accountable to their state legislatures and remove any benefit to be had from trading favors for votes. Senators, as per the Founding Fathers' intent, must be the representatives of their respective states and not the individual voters. We further affirm our support for the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution of the United States, the rights of the citizen to perform jury nullification, and the power of local governments to nullify laws. Full stop. Yes, sir.
Yeah, all that sounded great, except that, like, that one last part about saying that local governments should be able to nullify laws. Are we saying that we actually, like, agree and believe that local governments should be able to nullify any federal law?
Yeah. As what was the act you said? State governments, local governments cannot nullify federal law, but they can actually nullify state law.
So
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a motion to change the language and the power of local governments to nullify state laws.
Oh.
All right, I need to take.
Yeah, I'm going to hand this to you because parliamentarianism is not my jam. I'll be right here.
All right, so we are in the discussion phase of this report. There has been a motion for an amendment to the language of the report. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second, let's move to discussion of the motion to amend. Would you speak to your amendment, please?
So, in the last sentence, we further affirm our support for the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution of the United States and the rights of the citizens to perform jury nullification, the power of local governments to nullify state laws. The way it's read, to me, it sounds just like we were saying, local governments have the power to nullify any federal law or state law. And if we're talking about just state law, then I think
So your motion is to insert the word state?
Yes, sir.
And that's just the one word?
Just the one word, state.
Okay.
State, nullify state.
Is there any discussion about the motion?
Has this motion been seconded?
Yes, it was seconded.
You seconded it. Remember?
Sir, did you have a?
No, I second.
Is there any discussion? Any other discussion on this? All right, then I'll call the question. The motion to insert the word state into that right at the very end, that last sentence of proposed Rule 11. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? I see one opposed, two opposed. I see two opposed. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Is there any further discussion on the report of the platform committee? Seeing, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I like that change. It clarifies things as far as the intent of that. Now I guess the question that I'm kind of wondering about is, why should we really believe that last particular part, that any, like the city government or a county government should be able to nullify a state law? Sure, of course, we might like that whenever the state law is something that infringes on our liberties, but if the state law happens to be something that protects our liberties, then in that case, and if the county is trying to nullify that state law by doing its own thing and then therefore violating our liberties, I would be inclined to say that we wouldn't know whether or not we would want to nullify that state law unless we know the content of that law. This seems like a very general statement. I guess it seems like it's unnecessary. Like, in my opinion, it might be good to just strike that last part from the platform. But anyway, that's.
Anyone else wish to speak to that?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about if, for instance, a local government would nullify the state law against child abuse or something like that.
Yeah.
Would that be something we would support?
Right. Yeah. So I guess that might be a good, good example. Like if the state law says no child abuse, and then a county government's like, no, I'm gonna nullify that. I would, I think I would be opposed to that. I wouldn't want them to be able to nullify that law. I would think.
Can I address that?
Yes, sir.
I think for the most part, the actions of any level of government are evil, and therefore, if you're unlikely, you're unlikely to have a level of government pass a good law and then everybody be wanting to repeal a good law. Does that make sense?
Sure, that's probabilistically speaking.
That's just historically the case, I think.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Someone who formerly lived in Horry County many years ago, I guess wasn't that long ago, the state passed a helmet law for the motorcycles riders down there. Now, one of the huge revenue drivers of that area is the bike weeks they hold. So basically, Horry County, after a couple of years of seeing the revenue dropped off, turned around and told the state, you can take your helmet law and go fish with it. Because for that particular area, the helmet law was detrimental to their economy, like in a market sense. Since then, they've worked to actually, now the state has repealed the helmet law. But that's a great example of where somebody in Columbia with good intentions decided they were going to ramrod something down onto the local level, whether we wanted it or not. We actually went, as a motorcyclist who does wear a helmet, I still went with Horry County, because it's not Columbia's place to tell us how to run our damn economy, which is basically what they were trying to do. So that to me is a good example of why local governments should have the right to basically handle their own business, especially their own county coffers.
Yes, sir.
Just to speak in favor of, as worded, in a general, instead of giving examples, I believe it's, excuse me, I believe an easy way to put it is the local government is more in tune, or will have a more direct response to the citizens of their area than somewhere far off in Columbia or such. They're more accountable to their people the closer you are to being local. So I believe it's unlikely that the local will be less in tune than Columbia will. If they're repealing a law, they're more than likely to be doing the will of their constituents.
Yes, sir.
What's the process for nullification? I mean, are you saying that local government can just nullify things on the?
Matt, would you speak to that?
I'm sorry. The question again, please.
What's the process for nullification? So we're concerned about good laws getting thrown out or bad laws, whatever. What is the process? Is it just council members sitting around going, I don't like that one, they toss it, or is
in my mind, it's exactly that simple. It's no different than jury nullification, where you're sitting in a jury sequestration discussing a case, and he did exactly what they say he did, but that's a stupid law, so I'm not going to hold him accountable for it. And that's exactly what I envision, exactly like that. And kind of to speak to it in maybe a little more broader terms. So I'm wildly radical. I'm not a member of the Radical Caucus, but I'm just wildly radical, right? And for me, there is a presumption of individual liberty in all things. So I presume in this case that a local government, a county or municipality government will mind and respect the liberties and freedoms of the individual. And do they not? Or if they don't at any point, then there's systems and procedures in place to deal with that. That's why, yes, I think it's an absolute authority for local governments to nullify state laws. Because for me, there's a presumption of individual liberty that's going to supersede everything else anyway.
Victor?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people think this state is a red state. It's not completely red, it's purple. And I live in the blue county. And my county councilman's already trying to figure out a way to get around the state law about banning guns in my county. So I'm a little bit against this.
I also have sorry, I should raise my hand. Now, this, some of y'all might disagree if this is like a historical, or whether or not this is historically accurate or not. But I guess the impression I've gotten is that, generally speaking, local governments tend to really like passing laws that restrict individual liberties. They sometimes are more oppressive than higher levels of government, state or federal, and so forth. And so forth. That's at least my observation and what I think I've noticed. So I'm generally wary of giving local governments more power compared to a higher level one, at least hierarchically.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, at every level we all want less government intrusion in our lives, more liberty. But just whether or not which level tends to historically be the ones that want to oppress us the most, it seems like local ones tend to really want to. So that's why I would be wary of this. But I guess if I was going to maybe propose a change of language, what I would like to do is just strike that last part, that last little clause from the statement, because I think it might be unnecessary. Like you said, if the whole point of this is just to express our beliefs, and we know this isn't actually going to be put into law anytime soon, then the rest of our platform already expresses the fact that we want to limit government power in general, all levels. We want to support liberty and free markets, all that great stuff. We already expressed that. So this would be redundant and maybe just add confusion, and it probably just serves no purpose. So maybe why not just get rid of that last little part, and we'd all, then there's no confusion, and we still get the same objective of communicating the message that we want to send in other parts of the platform.
Are you making a motion?
That would be my motion. Is
And
to
who
strike
are you?
that last part. I'll make it specific. I'll say the part that I would recommend striking is the last part, and the power of local governments to nullify state laws. I recommend
There's a motion on the floor to strike and the power of local government to nullify state law. Is there a second?
Second.
I see a second. Is there any further discussion on this topic? Yes, sir.
Should we consider possibly moving that to its own plank so that we can debate the merits of it differently, but still accept the portion about appointing senators and the rest of the language?
Well, he's just talking about striking that last little clause. All the rest of it would still be there.
Right. My thought is, do we just separate it into two separate planks instead, and pass the original language with the second part that is talking about striking, moving that to its own plank instead?
If I may, Laird. I had no idea that this was going to be the point of discussion, the point of contention with the platform recommendations. I'm not opposed to what you were saying. I will tell you that right now this is not a good forum for us to actually do that, because now you're talking about writing up a whole new separate plank that's going to go into the platform. See what I'm doing right now? You don't want me writing at the moment. But I'm not opposed to what you're saying. So take that for what it's worth. Like, if you want to make a motion to strike that last part and address it later at the next convention, whatever, I'm not mad at you.
We have a motion on the floor that we have to deal with. That we can talk about that after we deal with it.
Mr. President, I would, point of information, I would point out, this is the place, this is the body that votes on them. These are proposals. Right. They are subject to change.
They are. There's a motion on the floor. Is there any? Yes, sir.
Discussion. Point of discussion on this striking this language. Follow up Mr. Biggs' comment. Yes, I agree that local governments can sometimes be more restrictive than the state. A great example is out west, they like to restrict what breed of dog you can have at the local level. But the difference is at the local level is many times you know those people personally. You can approach those people personally. When it starts moving up the chain, there's more and more layers of insulation that you got to try to find. Trust me, when we tried to go to the state from Oregon, Georgetown County to find out how to lobby somebody for the helmet law, all of a sudden no one knew who wrote it, no one took any responsibility. It was amazing. It just came out of nowhere. So the point is that at the local level, you got a lot more power, a lot more influence on how you can deal with that. You know, in the case of Oregon County, there was someone who was in favor of the helmet law. Their business, their small business, suffered for a while the people decided not to shop there. Those are some examples of why I think this language should remain in there.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Call the question.
I already called it.
Again, you know, locally, we have a state law saying that the federal, local governments cannot change gun laws, and my county is looking to get around that law. And this, I don't want to ever be said that the Libertarian supports my county to do that.
All right. The question has been called. Stuart yelled out to call the question, so I'm bound by that. All in favor of the motion to strike those 5 words or whatever it is from the very end of the proposed plank, or in favor of striking them? That's what's on the floor. Raise your hand. Can you get a count, or do we need to?
I think I've got 8. Is that what you got? Oh, 9,
Over here,
10.
too.
And you 11. Is that what you get, Rick?
Raise your hands again. I'm counting 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 4 here.
I'm counting 13. I think somebody changed the vote.
All right, hold your hands up, straight up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Stand.
6, 7. Let's do that. Stand.
Stand.
I'm getting 14.
And we're going to ask you to count. Let's do this like a good national.
Sorry. 1,
2, 3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
8. 8.
Right there.
Doug?
You're 9.
You're 9.
9.
Doug?
You're 9. Yeah, and go ahead and sit down after you count out your number.
10.
Sir.
10.
No, that you 10, 11.
14 is 14.
I want it to be 9.
You can self-identify as 9?
We'll have the record show that David is 9. all opposed to striking those 4 or 5 words, whatever the number is, please stand.
Can I be a service and run in this?
I'm sorry.
Can I be a service and run in this?
1, 2,
3,
4,
He's
5,
6,
7,
8,
9,
10,
11,
12, 13, 14,
15,
16,
17,
18.
19.
20.
All right, so nays have it. 20 to 14 was the number, I believe. All right, so the motion fails. The motion fails. Those words remain in. I'm going to call the question now on approving. Yes, sir.
I'm to understand, this would eliminate .7?
Yes, that's correct. Plank 7 would be subsumed into plank 11 because of the language.
I believe, .7 needs to stay. I make a motion that any idea of removing plank 7 be removed.
Can you read for us plank 7?
Yes,
As it
sir.
exists now, that you want to keep? You want a copy of that? I don't have a copy.
Plank 7, the South Carolina Libertarian Party supports action by the state to defend the rights and powers reserved in the 9th and 10th Amendments to the United States Constitution against federal intrusion.
Well, isn't that what his proposed Rule 11 said?
We removed the word rights because states do not have rights. That's the only difference between 7 and 11 as they exist now and the proposal.
I believe his objection is to moving it. I mean, he's just saying, don't move it, keep it a separate plank.
Yeah, keep it separate, keep 7, keep them separate.
Sounds like your wording.
It would have been appropriate for that to be a minority report since he was on the platform.
Were you on the platform committee?
Yes, he was.
Oh, well, then.
He has offered no minority report.
Right, right. I'm not gonna accept the motion then, because you should have done it as a minority report. I'm calling the question on the approval of the platform committee's report as presented. All in favor, say, raise your hand. Opposed? I see 1, 2. I see 2. Is that right, Victor? Is that what your count was? All right, the motion carries. It is now 5 minutes to 11.
Could we take a
5 minutes to 10, rather, I'm sorry. I would like to take a break. However, there is one presidential candidate who has a timeline limit. I'd like to give her 5 minutes to address the convention and then dismiss her, and then we will take a short break.
And I have 5 minutes up on you.
Okay. Please introduce yourself and there's time right there.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Soraya Faust, and as you heard, I'm a presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. This isn't my first time running. I was actually a candidate in 2016 as an independent. I made history as being the youngest candidate in the history of the United States, the first millennial, the first woman of Arab descent and Armenian to run. As you know, Ralph Nader was the first male president. He was Lebanese. My family is actually from Aleppo, Syria. And I'm also the first Latina woman. My mom is from Venezuela. So I bring in a lot of the diversity. I'm an educator. This is my 20th year teaching. When I went into politics, I always knew, I guess you'd say I've always been a libertarian at heart, but knowing it's a two-party system, we obviously had to choose, I had to choose one of the two. I chose Republican, but I was always part of the Liberty Caucus. And the reason why I'm running for president is because we've lost the essence of what is a true politician. A politician is supposed to be of service to the people, not the other way around. All the politicians are doing is that they're working for the corporations, for the special interests. Unlike the other presidential candidates that are running for the Libertarian ticket, I see potential. It's not just about the 5%. I'm in it to win it. Okay, people don't realize there's about 52 to 55% of the Americans identify themselves as either MPA or independents. What does that mean? If we can bring on those people, we become a majority. And that's what my goal is right now, is that we have to work in unifying the party as a whole and to be able to bring on new people to join the party so that we can become a majority. It isn't impossible to win. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not gonna be giving out free ponies or pineapple pizzas. I'm sorry I don't wear a hat, okay? But honestly, I'm real, okay? And again, my goal is to win this. And I would love to have your support. Again, my name is Soraya Faust, and you can follow me on all the social media. I really appreciate you for giving me the time. During the break, I will be here, so if you guys want to meet me on a one-to-one basis, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Again, it's Soraya Faust, S-O-U-R-A-Y-A, last name Faust, F as in Frank, double A, S as in Sam. I was born in New York, and I'm currently living in Miami, Florida. Okay? Thank you again to everybody. Congratulations to being for it. Hope you enjoy the rest of the
Thank you. It is 10 o'clock. I have, as president of the convention, I have the authority to move items around, and I will be doing so a little bit. However, we're going to take a quick break right now, and then I'm going to move up the method of selecting candidates, which should take very little time, and then we'll go on to our lunch break. That's all right with everyone? So let's take 15 minutes to back here quarter after 10. Cigarettes.
Right. Well, if we didn't, we run everybody else off.
So my first national convention, I ended up hanging out with Steve French and the rest of well, I just
Yes. After I talking the second time, I asked this time around.
We had this huge fight 2 years ago. The election now falls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
Six days president.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't.
Yeah. Oh no.
No, what we said is that we changed the less on the and the reason I raised that point is, as state chair, I told him he should bring a minority report. He was told that. His minority report was that he didn't want to put money in it, and that's why he wanted to do it, because he was a member of the Two years ago, I beat them by 3 votes because we had a person who was trying to destroy the party. When they're hanging out, I got they already had the document.
That's our big.
So I
And the reason,
That's right.
and the reason,
That's right across the river.
yeah. Well, we did.
So no, we're always coming out of Andrea.
Because the rules said I had to appoint it to 6 months ahead. We didn't rewrite the changes on the 2017 convention until a few weeks ago. We didn't have the correct changes posted because the committee didn't exist. So the committee turned in, so we couldn't even make those changes. Stupid. That's what I did. Or we call it standing vote. Yeah, absolutely. It's serpentine. When everyone stood. Right. In the LP, at least at the national level, we call it standing vote. And they stood down as a candidate. Yes. This is the one.
This is a good crowd. If we really have a big one, say you're number 6.
Yeah, they should be sitting down.
Because it gets confusing.
Yeah, they were. Right, we were sitting down in the nays, but in the yays, but the nays weren't sitting down. But it didn't matter. They had it by. They had some. And you're gonna find this funny? No, 33. No, they will not. You don't have to vote. In fact, it is very likely there are some people who may not get any votes at all. No.
If I lived on the coast, I would want with those cloud bags.
Our problem with it 2 years ago was we had people who were below other people who tell us literally the morning of the convention, we're wondering where they are, and we no, in fact, on one of them, we found out
a whole bunch of churches are dying because they're eating plastic in there.
That's the only reason. And other people, we couldn't move them up in alternate delegates until we were sure the delegates were showing up. So we actually seated 32nd person who got 3 votes at the state convention was seated as a delegate. As well as a member of the party that we didn't even know was going to
Also, they're only single use plastic bags. Well, yeah, that.
I actually had that as a document. Now when we get to this, seven, all this ask like why we explain why we have that.
Larry, if you wanted to say,
I'm not going to hand them out later, but there's 4 guys.
So are we pushing things off a little bit?
Yeah, they were told 1 p.m. Mr. Fishman.
Yes.
I would like to ask one thing, because I think, the problem with us having it this weekend is we don't know how many delegates we get to the National Convention. I believe we have 17.
So I will tell you that A, I don't know. B, we had a remarkable run at the end. We are currently over 50,000 We haven't been in a long time. However, we will not close counting because we could be getting some in the mail that are postmarked October 31st.
We know that. I'd already explained it there. I know.
So,
remember, remember, I was in headquarters one year counting them.
Exactly. So this year we will turn the final numbers over to Karen Ann.
But we also had, we went in and did 16.57.
Yeah, oh, so you're close.
And we needed 5 more to hit 17.
Right.
Based upon proportional vote equal to it. And I believe we got something like 10.
So that sounds
So
good.
I think we're either 16 or 17.
The state that I think is the best is Colorado. They actually, because Colorado has libertarian registration, and so they paid a telemarketer to call every registered libertarian in Colorado and say, that. But Colorado was already pretty high, so I don't know if they improved their delegate count at all. Right? They could have added 50 people and not changed their delegate.
No, by my count,
Jeff is the guy with the.
you said we're over 15,000.
Yep.
13, 10%. No, we might have gone down to 15. I don't know. But I think we're allowed, because by our rules, we're allowed twice the number of delegates to be selected. And you'll notice it also says 33. By our rules, he is the only delegate right now. The chair is an automatic delegate. We added that 2 years ago.
Oh, so you're Sean. That's good. So Steve French texted me and asked who got elected, who's going to be chair.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's Sean. Yes.
Good. He asked if it was you.
Yes, we've gone from straight ties to bow tie UA.
That's good.
All those
I appreciate
officers
it.
are wearing bow ties, and they're purple.
Purple one right there.
Purple one right there.
That's good too. I appreciate it. Let me finish handing these out and then catch up. Basic blackjack strategy. There's got to be a casino around here, right?
They're illegal.
What? No, there's a casino boat out in Myrtle Beach, I know for sure.
We're nowhere near the coast here.
Are you?
No, they have to go 100 miles offshore.
Really?
Yeah.
No, 12 miles.
No, it's been changed to 100 miles.
I don't know. Massachusetts, we sent a boat out.
I think it's 100 miles down here.
Interesting. I mean, it's a federal law, so.
Well, it's something like that.
This is the current plank, yes. No, this is the plank. What I've been doing is sort of. I'm a big fan of business cards. I'm a big fan of business cards as things to hand out. And so if you can figure out a way to put something that's useful on one side, our plank on the other. So the other day I was at a sex workers rally, so I had one that was hotline numbers, stuff like that on the other side. Our plank on sex workers. So, other opportunities to go up. This was from leftover from the fest.
You are.
Give you one of these. Blackjack card on that side, and then our position. So if you happen to go to the casino later on.
Then I will correct it. I will correct it. Well, there was oh, wait a minute, no.
So
30 days before. 30 days before. 30 days before. Is that 30 days before? Oh, was it? We got that off and we published that 30 days before.
A couple of donors.
Is it a race?
Because they would love to come play over. I was curious. I thought about doing that. We don't. My big problem is the delegates out of the road.
Really great. And you know one thing?
Next question is, can they be added?
There's a reason. No, there's a reason. Let's say that you
So how do you guys
one of our delegates got 4 votes.
That was Annie and Samantha. I was the chair. I was the convention chair. It made me feel more.
I don't know everybody in there, but I know everybody.
We should. We can hang out.
That would be
Good, I like to see that.
I'm the same. I didn't even see the They brought the question up, how?
Yes.
So these come in based on data. The Republicans are talking about studies being done in downloads. None of these conversation we had, and he was like, these two they did not need with the other people getting back.
One of them already started the
Reassemble, please. Anyone outside?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Matt?
He already was.
I will round him up. You can be with.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a
Bye, guys. Thank you again for giving me your time.
All right, the Sergeant at Arms is out there rounding up a few stragglers, but we need to get started. We've made very good progress. We're doing far better
Did
than
we
I
authorize
expected.
use of weapons?
I didn't authorize use of weapons.
I don't need them.
I didn't think you did.
I'm just checking.
No one crosses Matt. What I'm going to propose doing, as my authority as chairman, I'm going to move from the afternoon the method of selecting candidates up to now. We can deal with that now. I'll explain those in a second. And then we'll break early for lunch and have a 2-hour lunch. Whatever, you can do everything you want. We'll be back at 1:30. And then what we'll have left is the presentations by all the presidential candidates who are here and want to speak.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
might I suggest breaking, which would probably be 11:30, and come back at 1 instead of 1:30, which would give us a little more time to get going before we get the candidates.
We'll see where we are at that point, but that makes sense. We'll have the presentations by the presidential candidates. We'll have the election of the national delegates, and then we'll have the resolutions. And that will be the end. I'm hoping we can get done before 3, and everybody can disperse and do what you want if you want, and we can perhaps move early to the reorganization of the state committee, which is scheduled for 3 o'clock right now. We can do that. That's my plan anyway. So I'm going to move up and address right now the item that's scheduled at 2:30 called Method of Selecting Candidates. What that is it's expressed in our rules, Rule 2H, but it's mandated by state law. We nominate, as you all know, our candidates by convention. We do not use primary elections, as the major parties do. We are required by law to every year reaffirm, every convention reaffirm that is our decision. We have to vote to hold our nominating convention, to nominate our candidates by convention rather than by primary. We don't want to do a primary because they're very expensive, and besides which, we've already tried to once, and the state Supreme Court shot us down.
The chair is showing bias.
I'm sorry. I should not do that. In any event, I would entertain a motion that this party nominate its candidates by convention this year. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I see a motion. Is there a second? Second. Is there discussion? Sir?
Yes, I wish to point out this must pass by law by 3/4. If 25% of the convention vote to go to primary, we're back in court again. The last time this went to court, the state Supreme Court directed the Election Commission to, and I quote, continue to break the law and do not allow the Libertarians to have primaries. So if 25% of you vote to go to primaries, then the chair will have to file a lawsuit because they will deny us the right, and we will spend many, many thousands of dollars more once again told by the state Supreme Court that they are to break the law and not permit us our right as a party. I'm just giving you a fact of what would happen if this vote fails.
Okay. Can I give another fact here?
Yes, sir. Another fact.
Another fact is if we go to primaries, we'll have the same problem with Democrats and Republicans. Someone can file as a Libertarian, and we cannot, in primaries, we're not allowed to have NODA as a choice. In our convention, we are allowed to have NODA as a choice, and that has saved us a lot of embarrassment, especially in a special election time. So I say vote, stay as convention.
Is there further discussion, questions from anyone? Yes,
Call
sir.
the question, please.
Call the question. All in favor of this party nominating its candidates by convention for the remainder of this term, raise your hand.
Any opposed?
All opposed?
Okay,
The ayes have it. I really don't want to move into anything else. It's only 10:30. The
Would the
presidential
incoming
candidates-
chair wish to address the convention and possibly reappoint the convention committee so that we can run the debate this evening?
Sure, I can do that.
It'll take as long as you want.
Look at that chairman's swagger.
You're biased. Thank y'all for electing me. I really appreciate it. He told me to take as long as I wanted.
Do you have a weather report?
I don't. It's kind of cold out there.
But he's not chairman, you don't have to listen to him.
So, need to reappoint the committees. I don't have people picked out for everything yet, but for the convention committee, I'd like that to stay pretty much whoever it is who's been on it so far. Stuart.
It was myself, Mr. Biggs, and Mrs. Thornton.
Alex. If y'all would stay being, and Casey back there. JP, if y'all would stay.
Actually, they weren't on the committee.
Was y'all added to the committee?
You know, several of us just tuned in and helped.
They just came in, came out, however, I have no objection to him being added.
All right, well, the 5 names that I just said, y'all will be the convention committee through the,
until the next meeting.
through the, just through the end of the, well, for the next couple of months. That way, y'all can run the debate tonight, and whenever we have another meeting, we will get a report, kind of a closeout report from the committee, just to tell us how we did, lessons learned, things we should do better next time, things that we thought were great this time. And also, since I'm doing this, let me also reappoint the Rules Committee to Laird and Stewart.
There were 2 others, but I don't remember who they were. Do you, Laird?
Myself and Steve Sears.
Yes, you were on it, yes.
Yeah, and Steve Sears, yeah, right. Stephen and Stephen Biggs and Steve Sears. We'll go ahead and let the 4 of y'all go ahead and be the Rules Committee, because I know, being a less experienced chair than my predecessors, I will definitely be relying on the Rules Committee for guidance from time to time. It would be nice.
Point of information,
Yes,
you
sir.
also usually serve on the Rules Committee as chair.
I think that's in the rules now, right?
No, it's not required,
The chair
it's
is
just
an ex
protection
officio
of all committees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's all I got. Thanks again, everybody. Oh, one thing I will say, I am going to need, and I think the party is going to need, that I delegate a lot of the work that is done. Our past chair has done a lot of work himself, and
Because no one else would?
I can tell he's hurting. So I am going to do a lot more delegating, which I think will be great for everybody in the party to be able to grow. However, I don't want to delegate a task to anybody who doesn't want to do that task, or that task is outside of their wheelhouse. So on sclp.org/sign up, if all of y'all would go there, and I know you're already members, but if you would sign up again, there's actually a box on there where you can tell me what your interests are. You can tell me what your assets are. If one of you owns a fleet of passenger vans and I don't know about it, So please do that. If you're
Point
interested.
of information,
Yes.
I suggest you wait until Tuesday for people to do that, because you're not going to be able to get national change who those go to until Monday. And since I'm no longer chair, I'm just going to delete any I see.
I have an email set up on the system that pings me every time somebody signs up
Okay, so we
at
fixed that
SCLP.org.
already.
Yeah. So sclp.org/sign up. If y'all want to do anything, please let me know what your interests are. That way, if you really do like budgets and balance sheets, I can get you on the finance committee. I know there's a lot of you who that was a wonderful sound.
I'm here for you, Mr. Chairman.
Save a little bit of that for me.
Would you like a glass?
Just a taste. So yeah, please do that, and that way I'll know who best to appoint to various committees. So with that said, I'll turn the gavel back over to the convention president.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
And whoever's phone that was, I'm fining you $10. All right. We have dealt with everything that I want to deal with now. It is 10:30, which is quite early. I've never been to a convention we got this far this early. I would propose, unless there is objection, that we sir.
Mr. President, you have the ability to move up the resolution to fill the time.
That's true.
Which would also guarantee us more time to get business done by 3 o'clock.
That's a good point. Eric, would you be prepared to make your resolution now and move it up?
I would prefer to wait till after lunch.
Say when.
We're just not getting on.
Okay, of course. I make a motion
Doesn't
that
matter.
we pass.
It's on the agenda. It doesn't really require a motion.
Okay.
But you should speak to what the resolution is.
Yes.
No, you have to come up here.
Okay.
You don't get out of it that easily.
All right, this would be a resolution for us to endorse the Convention of States. And what that is, it's the Article 5 Convention, spelled out in Article 5 of the Constitution, to add amendments to the Constitution. These would be focusing on 3 main issues. One would be limiting jurisdiction and power of the federal government. Number 2 would be term limits. And number 3 would be a balanced budget, restrictions on overspending. Are there any questions?
I'm sorry, can you say the number 3 again?
Number 3 would be fiscal restraints.
You're supposed to have copies to hand out to everybody.
Everybody should already have copies.
I wasn't given one.
Neither
were they.
What's
They'll like one out, please.
Yeah.
They were in the delegate package.
Yeah, we're setting up and didn't get delegate packages.
Yes,
Well, at least I did.
All right.
If I could get a delegate package, do we have any?
They were emailed, but they were also supposed to be handed out.
And they were put on all the seats, but evidently, yeah.
And then?
And then, you guys don't count. Anybody else? All right, so the proposal on the table is that this body endorse the convention states projects, which requires a resolution by the state legislature to join that project and call a convention of the states under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Is there discussion, questions? We have people here who can speak to that.
I have a question. What sort of support are you getting from the state legislature at this point? I'm just curious.
Mr. Boser, would you ask that question?
Yes, H 3125 is the House resolution, and
Rick, why don't you come up here?
Is this a House resolution, Senate?
Well, there's actually two resolutions. They're both exact mirror images of each other. H 3125 is the House resolution, and S 1112 is the Senate resolution, and we have 19 co-sponsors on the Senate and 33 in the House.
All right. That speaks to support.
Yeah, that's thank you. That's exactly what I was asking.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, who would pay for this event? How would we fund a convention of states? Just our state convention's expensive. Where does this money come from to do this?
That's to be determined. But basically, it takes 2/3 of the states, which is 34 today, to pass the same limited resolution for the three purposes that we have. So those states, the states themselves would fund for their folks to go, and the states would determine the method to fund the meeting.
Questions? More? Doug?
Well, I guess maybe this isn't so much a question, but maybe just a recommendation. Since we all have these sheets of paper and everything, maybe it would be good to just have like a 5 minutes of no one talking at the podium, so that way everyone has a chance to read and digest this stuff. But if anyone's like me and they hadn't read it until they just got here.
Would you
Yeah, I guess
people like to do that?
I guess I'll do it.
Take a 5-minute recess in place?
Yeah, could we play some music?
Perhaps the chair could sing.
The chair could sing, but it would be very distracting, and you're supposed to be reading and digesting. So let's take 5 minutes in place for you to read and digest the materials, the resolution, and if you look at the other sheet that you've given, it has you
5 minutes.
some discussion of some of the major questions that people tend to ask about this. And we have 5 minutes running. You can see the clock.
You talk for the first 15 seconds. They didn't need that. They didn't convince that. Who knows? I have a list for you. All right, these are the ones that the rest of you also already spoke. Jacob Hornberg asked to speak. I don't know if he's here. All six companies indicated they wanted to speak. And I had one other one that, from the notes from Jeremy. I don't know if Mr. Williams is here. So, assuming we have 6, we'll be able to do 10 minutes apiece. And we do, what's your cost? 5 minutes. But if we get questions, 10 minutes. There'll be 6 people, 6 of them speak. 5 speak and 5 for questions. Or 10 till 3 use up in the room. Yeah. We'll have plenty of time. told we were doing this 1 to 1:30, one in that range to give it one. Because I figured we might be ahead of schedule, so I told them all 1. I didn't know in between I was on schedule. How did we do this? Good. How many of these have we run together now? 4? 3 or 4? Well, maybe that helps a little bit. No, well, I think what helped is I appointed the committees early. I pushed them to do their work. They got through it, they published it, there was time for people to talk to them. And we did that several times, and we did that 2 years ago. We had 2 years ago we were fine also. We just didn't have as much that we had to fit in. I mean, we still have 2 different systems in this. No, I mean, I think they deserve an opportunity to speak. Because tonight they're going to be speaking to the public in the debate. Today they get to speak to the delegate. Well, you know, it's not working to begin with for Colorado, you know, it's just crazy. You're going to have an election and find who's going to be the temporary convention president for 60 seconds. But we only do that because that's state law. The only thing that they did for me that surprised me was usually the last time the year was temporary convention, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a second one. Huh? No, I got at least an hour. It was at least half an hour in there. Something like that. Okay, so how come you don't have your red thing? Okay, you gotta go.
All right. That's fun.
The gavel?
I gotta give you one of these.
No, that thing's like really good walnut. It's not gonna break from that. Not even a scratch on it, is there?
No. You should have had it engraved. Anyhow, our 5 minutes is up. You've had a chance to take a look at the proposed resolution and hopefully delete some of the issues. Eric, do you want to add anything more? And then I'm going to open the floor for more questions. Please stand.
Yeah, I just want to point out, this is not a constitutional provision. Nothing is going to be taken away from the Constitution. This is only to add amendments, add the 3 amendments. And it takes 34 states with nearly identical resolutions for this to happen. 34 states have to agree on what's going to happen. It's not going to be any kind of runaway convention or anything like that. Amy, do you have anything to say?
Sure, come up.
Yeah, we're doing the live stream. Thank you.
Now you're glad I suggested moving this up, aren't you? We've never had time.
Thank y'all for considering this resolution. I do want to say that it is an opportunity for us as Libertarian Party to bring these decisions back closer to we the people, to take some of that power back away from the federal government who has been reigning over our lives like terrorists, I would say, for a very long time. If you have any questions or concerns about it, please ask. I'm here to answer questions, and Mr. Mosner and Mr. Hill. Does anybody have any questions?
How would delegates to this convention of states be selected?
Rick, come on up.
In both of the resolutions, there's section 3 spells that out. Basically, the legislature recommends, and I think we have a copy of that with us. But there's 10 candidates that are recommended, and then the legislature selects 5 of those, and then of those, then those individuals select 2 others, and then those will be the alternates, and then the Senate pro tem is allowed to select 1 of those, and then the Speaker of the House selects 1. So those are the candidates then that will represent South Carolina. And in addition, section 3, I might point out, spells out that those people are obligated to follow the resolution, the limits upon that, and they're also obligated, once they're in the meeting, to report back to the legislature any of their representatives that are going outside of that. And then the legislature is obligated to call them.
I want to point out, Matt, that this is where we bring some of this back to we the people. We have access to the local reps. We don't have access to the federal reps. This is about as good as it's going to get for a while until we come up with a better solution. But we the people can pick up the phone, go down to the State House, tell our reps what we want. They don't listen, we can vote them out a heck of a lot easier than we can the federals.
I'm with you. I speak with my State House rep at least weekly.
Yeah. Thank
probably
you.
More frequently than that. But I really want to drill down on it. So you say that these 10 candidates, or these 10 people that are recommended, who recommends those 10 people? How are they recommended? Like, is that like a statewide ballot, or is it just?
The legislature does that.
The people we elect.
Okay, gotcha.
And this is where your voice is going to count when you get to the people we elect. You need to voice that. Because even when this passes, we need to stay active as libertarians in the state so that we can be heard. I mean, we all know it's a 2-party system. It's really hard to break into it. This is where we get our voice. This is what the forefathers gave us through Article 5 to have a voice.
Speaking just to South Carolina, we all know the Assembly is what runs the state essentially, and Hugh Leatherman tends to have all that power. Who's to say that he doesn't decide that Lindsey Graham, Tim Scott, Joe Wilson, or himself is one of those candidates, and how up the creek without a paddle are we in that scenario? I mean, is there like outside of just talking to these reps that already don't listen to us, I mean, is there anything else that we can do?
Elect them out of office, kick them out of office. And I know that sounds a little hard, but when a lot of people, and this is where, if you're not going to do something about it, don't complain comes into play. This is where we all, as citizens of South Carolina, need to become very active and very loud. And if they put someone in there that the citizens don't like, then we can speak up. But they have to listen. I mean,
well, they don't really. They already don't.
They do, or you vote them out.
Well,
we've been loud and trying to, and it hasn't worked.
Well, what's the alternate? Do nothing.
I mean, we're still doing stuff as it is here at this convention and continuing in the future. I mean, it's not like this is the one and only. And so, I mean, with all due respect, I don't see this as the one and only solution.
There is no one.
Yeah, there's not.
Doug?
So, the response that you gave, I can understand why we would all be kind of like, that's not going to work. But maybe I would provide a different response that might help answer your question a little bit. I guess I'm new to this whole convention of states thing, but if I'm understanding it correctly, let's say the legislature picks some real duds that we would not generally like. Some politicians like Lindsey Graham or whoever, right?
Hypothetically.
If they do pick duds, and people who are generally not libertarian at all, or don't want to really restrict the scope of the federal government, I guess what's the worst thing that would happen, right? Since the Convention of States is meant to only, I guess, come together to say, all right, here's 3 topics that you can do, and the only thing that you're allowed to do, you can do anything, is to limit some power. Then the worst case scenario is, even if our legislature does send some duds, then the worst case is that they don't get the job done, and then we're just back into our current defaults. And in that case, it's maybe, at least it's at least a positive probability of doing some advancement of liberty, potentially.
It's a non-violent way to take our liberty.
I would caution, I understand exactly what you're saying, Doug, and I would respond with an old adage, beware letting the camel put his nose under the tent. Once you open the door,
What does that even mean?
That means he's half finished the bottle of scotch.
I'm coming to join you. Stay right there.
It's empty, Laird.
It's empty?
Yeah, I'll not tolerate that disrespect.
Okay, sir.
I brought you bourbon.
Hit it. That's next on the list.
Which went into another adage with the camel, that a camel is a horse designed by a committee.
All right, is there, settle down, guys.
So currently, what, the number of states that listed have actually passed the resolution?
There's 15, we need 34. And keep in mind, for any amendments to occur out of this convention, 38 states have to agree. So if it's a really crappy set of amendments proposed, or 13 states have to do nothing and it doesn't go anywhere. So there's a lot of safety built into it.
Let me ask you, when you've got on here limit terms of office, has that already been decided how many terms, or that's what they would do later?
They would do later. They would do that during the convention. I've heard all kinds of proposals about that.
So sort of back onto Doug's point, like, sure, the worst they could possibly do is not do anything, we think. But we've also seen them, work under the guise of liberty and just restrict more of our freedoms through all sorts of crazy legislation and legalese. Why should we trust them to go and work on something that people will perceive as liberty when there's a very good possibility they'll somehow come out with a way to restrict more of our rights?
How?
Yeah. It's limited to the 3 proposed subject matter, and you can't go outside of it, or it can be contested by the Supreme Court and Congress. Right now, Article 5 of the Constitution is what gives this power to the people to convene and put these restrictions on federal government, not on liberty. How would that happen? How could that possibly happen?
How that would happen would be they misconstrue legislation on it. They misconstrue an amendment. They, get it all jogged down in, like, legalese.
Do you think that 38 states would pass that?
Yes, I do.
Bipartisanship.
I think
It's a devil.
So I think what he's getting at is like the balanced budget amendment. I think most people in here understand, yeah, we can have a balanced budget amendment, but we need to cap spending with that as well. Because if you have a balanced budget amendment, the majority of Americans probably support a balanced budget amendment, but they don't understand that, okay, we'll pass that balanced budget amendment, but that also means that taxes are going up and up and up. So I think that's where he'd get at, like, yes, balanced budget is great. Under the guise of liberty, let's balance this budget, get the national debt, the deficit down, and everything. But the majority of people probably don't understand what actually needs to be in that balanced budget amendment.
So to that point, you can balance the budget all you want, but the Iraq War was put as an emergency resolution, spending resolution for the first, until Obama was elected. We already spent billions and billions and billions of dollars that were not allocated in a budget. So let's pretend for the moment that it was balanced when we went into Iraq. It doesn't matter. We still added tremendous spending. I without specific verbiage being put forth, to look at. I don't know how we can decide whether or not to support something with just, oh, this is the idea, and the details will be later out of our hands. I don't know that That's just how bad legislation is passed.
Stuart,
Pass it,
Stuart,
you can get-
quiet, no, out of order. Stuart.
Yeah, I want to say something. First, I don't know necessarily if you can succeed. That said, I support your effort to try, and I want to say something half the people in this room don't remember, but I remember several times. Remember Graham Redmond Hollings, the attempt to bounce? Every once in a while, they wake up and they try to correct themselves. We got to keep trying. Yes, they fall and it falls by the wayside. That's still law, but they don't uphold it. I think there are huge problems with the process. There's a huge risk that it might fail. I personally think it's worth at least having us go on the record of let's try to fix the problem.
Yes, sir. Wait, I'm sorry, you spoke on that. You haven't yet, Steve.
I think the history of attempts to get a constitutional convention on various issues is...
Wait, correction, convention of states.
Any of those. The point is, the history is usually that once you start to get close to the required number, Congress decides to do something to head it off. So the likely outcome of this is not an actual convention of the states. The likely outcome would be if you start to get close to 34 states, Congress will propose something to try to head it off.
Well, they also may be fearful
Yeah.
that the convention will be held and start to correct their own behavior. So why would that be bad?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And that was one of my points. The second one is too, let's not confuse legislation with constitutional amendments. Constitutional amendments, by their very nature, the Constitution of the very nation is an open document. And so when you say, I want specifics, that's what the legislative process is for. That's not what constitutional process involves. And again, the goal of this is to pressure legislators into changing their legislation. So, but you don't want to write legislation at the constitutional level.
Good point.
Thank you.
Before Matt's already spoken, is there anyone who's not spoken who wants to raise a point? Matt?
First of all, I'd like to speak just a little bit to Stuart's comment. The potential, the possibility of success of a convention of states is absolutely immaterial. I don't care about that. I care about whether or not the principles of it align with my principles, my views, and my beliefs. If I'm the guy beating on a brick wall, I'm the guy beating on a brick wall, and I don't care, I'm still gonna do it. So that's my comment towards that. Secondly, I'd like to say that I'm gonna let that part go. I don't want to hear it. I'm just gonna let it go.
Agreed with me. Wow.
The potential of success is immaterial in my decision. I'm a man of principle. I'll stand on that principle. I'll die on that hill if I agree with it. But you got to make me agree with it.
I just gave you bourbon.
And I love you. I love you.
Delegates, any other questions, comments from delegates?
I think everyone spoke once.
I think well, we've got a couple more going here. Let's start with Doug.
So for those of us who enjoy the wisdom of Laird and his judgment on various matters, legal issues, may I ask your personal opinion of this
There's the doors if you need to.
I can't express an opinion if I'm chairing the convention, so I have to step aside from that. I support it. I think it's a good idea. There's all sorts of protections built into it. Anything that comes out of it, if it's really bad, it's not going to pass. One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is the way a convention works. Constitutional conventions, convention of states, any of those things. Each state gets one vote. So once this thing happens and it's actually called, when 34 states call for a convention, Congress has to do so. They have a ministerial function. They have no discretion in the matter at all. They have some discretion over the timing, but that's about it. But, so, once it's called, every state, even if they didn't vote, even if they didn't pass this resolution, still gets to participate, right? But every state gets one vote. Doesn't matter how big your delegation is. California can send 400 people to the convention if they want. They get one vote. And the states that are liberty-oriented, very relatively conservative, are actually a majority of the states in this country. You know, there's a lot of people in places like California and New York, but each state gets one vote, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. But I support the idea. I have for a number of years.
I call the question.
Case? You can't do that. I already said Case could speak. So we will let Case speak, and then we will call the question.
Oh, you can't come back? I'm sorry, sir, but you can't come back until we're done.
Parliamentarian is ruled that I can't come back.
The parliamentarian is ruled you can't come back.
All right, I stand aside.
All right, do we
You
have
called the
anyone?
question, but I
No,
asked
that's
Case.
doesn't matter because I couldn't relinquish it, so I couldn't call the question.
So I asked Case to speak next.
I just have a question. Why, as the Libertarian Party, why is term limits something that we want to support? Seeing as, you know, Libertarians, we don't really hold, especially in federal offices right now. If, you know, let's say Tyler back here, he wins his district in this upcoming election, why do we want to limit him? You know, if he gets in there, the incumbent usually has an easier time of getting reelected. So, as Libertarian, why do we want to limit ourselves to a certain amount of terms?
Are you speaking about state level or federal level? Because we're only speaking about federal.
In any level, I don't want to limit the Libertarian Party to, you know, X amount of terms.
We got to get rid of the ones in there before we can get more Libertarians in there. So I don't see the problem that.
The convention issue only addresses federal level.
Mr. Hicks, you're out of order.
Chuck wants to speak.
Does this actually say term limits? Because you're discussing things that are not germane to the resolution. Yes, sir.
Just to address that, the poli-sci department at Clemson did a study a few years ago, and they found that the length of time in service that someone is in Congress correlates better to their approval of spending than does their party affiliation. So I have the same objection you do, but as my friend Larry has pointed out to me, the people that we like are rare, and the people that are demonic are common. And so,
Legion.
I never used demonic. I didn't use that.
For the most part, this will hit the right target. Yes, there'll be some innocent victims. I agree, but I think if you play the numbers are work in our favor.
Mr. Dospot.
The other advantage of term limits is that it means that the people that are in there know that they're going to have to go back and live under the laws they pass. For the rest of us, they can't become a permanent part of the government, so might at least get some discretion out of it.
All right, now I will call on Mr. Hicks.
Call the question, please.
We have the question called. Any objection to calling the question? Hearing none. All right. Question's been called. Since I can't turn it back over to you, we will now hold the vote on this. If you sit down. So I believe you are a delegate, right?
No, she's not.
Oh, she's not? Okay. All right. I'm going to do this the good old-fashioned way. If there's objection, we'll hold a vote. Is there any objection to this resolution? I see objection. Therefore, we will have a vote. All those in favor, since this may be close, I'm going to ask for a standing or serpentine vote, as it's sometimes called. All those in favor of this resolution, please stand. And I will ask Mr. Fishman, the chair does not vote unless there's a tie, so I don't know. In fact, I'm
2,
3.
Please sit down after call.
5. Chair.
7.
Chair.
9.
Diaz.
11.
12.
13.
16.
Oh, you
already
can't.
17. 18.
19.
20.
21.
22. 23. 24.
25. 26.
27.
You voted, sir? 27.
All right. Well, even though it doesn't, it won't matter. We will, those against.
Count the names.
We'll count, we had 27, we'll count the nays, please stand.
1.
2.
3, 4,
6, 7.
There's one behind you. 8.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had a few people abstain. All right, so it was 7 to 8?
Yes.
All right, the resolution was given with prior notice. It therefore only requires 50% for passage. The chair rules it passes.
Thank you, Stuart. Appreciate that. It is now 11 o'clock. Let us break.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, as the secretary, if anyone leaves permanently, bring your credentials up here so we can readjust the quorum for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. We're going to recess for lunch now, take a 2-hour break. We'll come back here at 1 o'clock. Promptly at 1 o'clock, we'll start with the presidential candidates. We'll be given time to speak and answer questions, and then we'll move on to a few other remaining items. We have to do another quorum count afterwards, so please be on time. As Victor said, if you're leaving, let us know. Give me your credentials.
And I will vote yes.
Hey, Larry, please ask everybody.
Was this live? I'm going to stop the live stream. Charles, what did he say we resumed?
Zoom 1.
1 o'clock, thank you.
No, I was counting in my head. I was counting in my head.